Here.
Attorney James Del Vista,
Yes, I'm here.
and our guest.
This meeting is being recorded and transcribed.
Can you state your name
Louisa Martin Duguay,
and your address?
31 Woodland Street, Hartford.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Chair will call for approval of minutes of regular meeting, May 13th, 2020.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mike, before you do that, who is here from the commission? I want to make sure we have a quorum.
No.
Linda's
Gotta ask
trying
Stacy, I don't know.
We don't have a quorum.
Who came through?
Barry Benson, Mike McGarry, and Mr. Wango.
Okay, so you have three, right?
Correct.
Linda's trying to-
Okay, thank you. Please make sure people identify themselves when they speak for those possibly, calling in.
Yep.
And this is Mary for the meeting minutes, Mary Pelletier.
Mary Pelletier.
Someone else joined. I don't know who it is.
Louisa Barton.
Such an awful.
I don't know.
Now we can't hear Frank.
All right. Okay.
Can't hear anything, folks.
You can.
Whoa.
What?
It's working now.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, but the echo's back. I
All right,
think it's.
can you all mute yourselves, please? Okay. We're still gonna have echo. And I don't know why, but, we're gonna get through this.
You must have two microphones somewhere. That's the only thing I can say.
Not when we talk. See, that's the problem. So, and I got a lot of talking to do. All right. So, Jim, we have a quorum, and the chairman is asking for approval of past meeting minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that. I did hear that part.
Okay, Chair.
All right.
Chair.
Approval of minutes. If they're muted, how can they say yes? If there's no objection, we'll approve the minutes. No objection, we'll approve the minutes, okay? Counselor, is that okay? No objection to take the minutes. Everybody can wave their hand. All right, fine. We've got approval for the minutes. Report of flood control.
I can't hear anything, folks.
This was not connected, and that still doesn't work.
So what if we, so that's disconnected right now?
No, we should connect it back up.
I don't think we need a camera at all. I used to do this without the camera, remember?
Tried to do that, tried to disconnect the camera and everything, and then shut the whole thing.
Right? If people called in on the speakerphone, try asking, isn't there a number to call in through the microphone Teams system so that you don't have both the speakers?
Can you hear me?
Jim can't hear us. Alan, you can hear us?
I can hear you.
How about Jim?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
All right.
We still have echo. I'm gonna do the best I can.
All right.
All right, this is the flood director's report. Administrative approval, you should all have the agenda in front of you. The administrative approvals, on the flood protection system, these are things that Nick and I approved. We didn't feel that the commission needed to have a vote. One was the riverfront recapture, 228 Liebert Road, they had to do some demolition. And then there was the Eversource Energy project at Clark Dyke. They need to do some vegetation clearing for their transmission line. So we gave administrative approvals on that. You know, we don't need to have meetings and drag you in,
Yep, we agree.
especially when the technology is the way it is.
We agree.
All right, the SWIFT update, I'm gonna let Nick speak to that.
So the SWIFT was approved by the Army Corps on May 11th, 2020. We have basically till the end of 25, so December of 2025 to complete the approved SWIFT program. We are working towards that. Every year, the end of the year, we have to provide an update. So an update was provided, which you should have a copy of. That basically I outlined what we're doing and our steps taken to date, as well as a schedule moving forward. Basically, in a nutshell, the design process is starting to gather momentum. The tow drain in South Meadows impervious blanket, the base of design for that was approved by the Corps. The elements of both jobs are combined into one job, and then basically we're going to design it this year for construction in 2022. The flood wall repairs are in the final design. The last element is to coordinate with the Connecticut Southern and the Worcester, Province of Worcester railroads, so we can occupy their railroad right-of-ways. But that should go out to bid this year. The field evaluation of the piezometers monitoring system has been completed. We're working on the final report, but we think we have a system that'll work, and that proposed to install that system later this year. The other things have to do with public input and education and emergency preparedness. Those elements should be commencing this year. So we'll propose to have a bunch of that stuff underway. Some of it will be completed this year, along with the interim risk reduction measures. And then as part of the SWIFT, at every 2 years, we have to basically prove that we're on pace to maintain the SWIFT approval. So we're going to be working towards that first milestone.
Quick question. The budget you put in covers all this that you're negotiating, right, Frank?
Okay, Nick has been very good and diligent at using the $5 million grant and old bond money.
Yeah.
So but we are asking for some additional funds to the tune of $1 million plus.
1.6 this
And
year.
we don't know if we're gonna get that yet. We're gonna have a meeting this afternoon. This is just to keep the SWIFT program.
Yeah.
This isn't anything new,
Yeah.
and it doesn't affect our pump stations.
Okay.
Okay, and just as a side note, we are chasing other funds to address the pump stations. Are you done with that?
Yeah.
That's an update on SWIFT.
Okay.
The report, the yearly report.
We have it.
Okay,
We all have it. We can read it.
no problem.
We
All
don't
right,
need
so
to-
the other item on the agenda is this WRDA Act, WRDA. And everything we're talking to you about, there's letters. I didn't mention that up front, but there's correspondence, there's documents in your package. You have that, Jim, right?
Yeah, yes, Frank, this is Jim. Whatever you sent out, I have.
Okay, great. So every year, the Army Corps asks the city for our support in obtaining money and funds through the federal government to address our levy system. And every year, the mayor signs off on it, but it doesn't get to the highest level of the Army Corps, where it ends up going to Congress saying, yes, we approve this funding for the city of Hartford. We always get cut short. And last year, we had a meeting with Congressman Larson about this, and he got educated on this whole WRDA process. And I thought that that was going to be a good thing, because he had all the big shots from Army Corps in the meeting. But unfortunately, I got the letter late last year that they did not approve the Army Corps' request for the city of Hartford. And I don't understand why that happens, but that's what this WRDA document is all about, Chairman. They continually knock us out. Okay, the next item, D, is the Connecticut Department of Transportation rehabilitation of bridge number 00980B, State Project 63712. During the construction, a big void was noticed at the bridge abutment, which is right where our levee system is located. And we asked them to address it, and they felt that the void wasn't their problem. And so we wrote a letter to the state saying that you cannot ignore, with the support of the Army Corps, that you can't ignore this void. It's, the void was, we think, caused by a structure on the landfill. So we're waiting for a response. The letter's in your package. That is a good indication of how we watch our levee system closely. You just can't get up there and do work and get away with it. Okay, the annual report, you have it. You've had it for a while.
Yeah, read it out.
And if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Hearing none, let's go on to number F, the Hartford Water Pollution Control Facility outfall. As many of you know, there's the Hartford treatment plant on the South Meadows, and they have an outfall that carries the treated effluent from the treatment plant through the levee system to the river. And that's an original structure that's fallen apart. And so one good thing about the MDC is they don't take things like that lightly. Like where DOT doesn't address the void in the bridge system, here on MDC, they are addressing it, and they're doing a report. They actually fixed some of the joints, but they are also looking at a long-term plan. My guess is they're going to replace this outfall, which is a big deal, because you're going through the levee system. But that's years off.
Come to us, okay.
G, grants. We are exploring, as I said earlier, we are exploring different grant options. This one here is called Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. And for the commission, this is that low part of 91 where they actually, when they put in 91 in the 80s, when they did that dip, that affects the integrity of the levee system. And, we're worried about seepage, because you don't have all this earth now holding up, the levee. So anyways, we're looking at a federal program that would go through the DOT to correct this problem, but there's no guarantees we're going to get that. And then finally, H, approved project status. Anytime there's other projects that go on within the flood area, if you will, we need to understand it and we need to approve it. For instance, at Hartford Public High School, they're installing a new athletic turf field, artificial turf. Well, it just so happens that the Park River conduit, as you know, right where Woodland Street, it goes under where Farmington, all the way, into, eventually to Bushnell Park. So we got, Nick requested a, work plan, so we understand that what they're doing, so they don't,
No harm.
create any harm to the Park River conduit. Also, Interstate 91, interchange 29, there's ongoing construction. It's, a portion of our levee system. We want to make sure that they don't do anything to harm that. And also, I mentioned to you, Chairman, earlier offline, St. Francis Hospital has that outfall that dumps into,
I just, for curiosity, I'd like to look at that. Who do I call over there so I don't get thrown away by a cop?
it's all open, the gates
Just
are,
walk down there,
just walk, I don't know how far that is from your house. It's the bone is, not,
huh? Behind the bonus.
what's it called? Not bone, it's called joint or something. It's like Hartford Hospital's bone in.
On the
joint.
left-hand side, you have a big side,
It's
okay.
beautiful, brand new building.
You can just walk down
Oh,
there and
yeah.
look at it? Okay, I'll go see it.
So that project is done, and they cleaned up a little piece of the Park River while they did the work. So that's it for my report. Next on the agenda, Commissioner,
Yeah.
unless you have is there any questions? Alan, anybody?
No questions for me, Alan.
The question is, if you're going for, go ahead.
It's you.
Oh, me, okay. The budget situation, in the budget situation, you're gonna be asking me for some monies to clean up the ongoing problem of the trees falling down
Yes, sir.
up in North Branch. And after a long talk with John McGrain, he sees, and he's been on this for as long as you guys, but way before you guys are around, back in the 90s, early 90s. His concern is that all that stuff sooner or later ends up being a much bigger problem downriver. And the neighbors say that it's more trees have fallen down since we've taken those photographs a couple of years ago. Additional trees have fallen down. And every time the water backs up, more of them look like they're gonna come down. So it is a near and, we haven't had the flows we had a couple of years ago, but we're gonna get them sooner or later. So I would underline that when, in the budget negotiations, we think it's a clear and present problem right now, but a much worse present later on, when more trees fall down. And all of a sudden, sooner or later, that stuff's gonna wash down the river. Sooner or later, we gotta deal with it anyway. Might be sensible to deal with it now and try to mitigate the ponding that we've got, because it's only getting worse. So anyway, that's, I think, very important. If they say, oh, don't do that this year, say, well, wait a minute. It's a building problem, doesn't just affect the people. I think it affects the other side, St. Francis side, if it gets worse, all the work they did. So anyway, just underlining that problem.
Yeah, I'll let you know how the budget, debates go.
Other than that, we have a guest, or two guests actually, Mary and Lisa, that are interested in all that North Branch stuff. And essentially, I'm just going to introduce them and give them just a minute or two to mention what they'd like to
So are
do.
we under public comment now?
Yeah, I guess this would be public comment. Yeah.
Business.
This wouldn't be new business, no.
Okay,
A very,
public comment, Jim.
okay.
Okay,
Lisa,
Frank, thank you.
Lisa Martin. Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Louisa Barton Duguay. I'm a board member of the Asylum Hill Neighborhood Association, and I actually do live on the Park River. And it's the neighborhood's western boundary. And we are very interested in having the river be healthier and also having access for the people who live in our neighborhood to know that that little river actually exists and they could go down and visit it occasionally. So if possible, a trail on I guess it would be the east side of the river. And I realize that that does create some problems in doing that, but there's a lot of parking lots right now that actually are impeding on the riparian zone. So there is work that should be done there. And it could be possible to do an actual trail, a loop that would go from Farmington to Asylum. People could cross the bridge and then continue along the trail back down to Farmington. So it could be a very nice recreational area. It's also a historical area in that the Wongot tribe that were the original residents of this area lived right along the river there, along the bend. So that would increase the tourist value of our neighborhood. Mark Twain commented on the river, and we can point out that there was a native village there at one time.
And as an aside, that whole area is deficient in any recreation at all, for anybody. And that would, for families, for individuals, and the handicapped, if we're set up right, it would be a nice thing to be able for people to do. Huge addition. And the Hartford is looking for major projects in the long term, not just, projects that'll last a year or two and go away. But the Hartford itself is looking for major projects.
Hartford Insurance Group?
Hartford Insurance.
The Hartford Insurance Group has allocated $10 million over 5 years to Asylum Hill for projects, and the neighborhood association would like to submit this as a project.
And the Hartford Foundation is into this stuff lately. And in fact, there's a program right now, if you go after a little bit of money, you can get it right now. But this would be a much bigger project in the long run. So it could be a lot of players in this game if we set it up correctly. But we need direction from Public Works, all the problems that Nick sees. There's a lot of problems there. Other people own the property. What are the real rights to it, and all that stuff. So that's one of the first steps. So I hope, Nick, you can discuss it with Louisa and bring up everything that we have to deal with, and then we deal with it and see what's possible.
Is there, a lot of it's private properties.
Yeah, supposedly,
Institutional, most of it.
it's various,
Not city-owned, no.
it's owned by the state, it's owned by the law school on one side. It's really messed up.
61 Woodland and 39 Woodland are owned by the
Developed, like St. Francis, they have to look at how their discharge would affect the river.
Well, Emmanuel House, just down the street from where I am, they have a big parking lot at the back, and one of their vans actually washed away or was damaged by a flood a couple of years ago. The van was no good after that. So it does have to do with flood control too.
The old community college used to close, every time there was high water, they'd close off maybe a third of all those. Am I right, Mary?
We should let Mary say a few words because she's very knowledgeable about the Park River.
So Mary, you're gonna be working with us on this. You got a couple quick words on this?
Does she introduce herself?
Introduce yourself for the record.
So my name is Mary Rico-Pelletier. I've been working on the North Branch of the Park River since 2003. The work began with a grant from the National Science Foundation as part of a study of urban rivers hosted by Rutherford Platt at the University of Massachusetts. And at that time, what he noticed was that the Park River, the North Branch of the Park River didn't have a community group that would be supportive of a plan. So we've worked for years with the DEP, but there's been fractioning of the neighbors. Unfortunately, we did have money in the city budget. I think it was 2016 at the end of the Segarra administration for a comprehensive plan that would address both the flooding issues and the water quality issues. The only funding we have had in the past 20 years for 18, 17 years, has really been related to deep the water quality concern because the North Branch of the Park River is an impaired river. It's listed on the 303D list, and that makes it a priority for federal funding. So I'm not quite sure why the Bronin administration never, the council at the end of, I think it was 2016, at the end of the Segarra administration approved funding for a plan to study the whole North Branch that would bring in both recreational issues and community issues, access issues, flood control issues, habitat issues, water quality issues. No federal funding and the federal funding that we apply for can't cross all those boundaries. It can't be intersectional. That's kind of the favorite word for everybody. It can't be intersectional. But in order to resolve these problems, like the wood problems, which John McGrain told me about, was one of the first conversations I ever had. He talked about the need for both the MDC long-term control plan, which of course is underway right now, and the wood, the tree problem. The tree problem is accelerated because the removal of the culverts and that were a bridge dam at the University of Hartford, and I believe that was in maybe 6 years ago. And since that time, the stream channel downstream has changed dramatically. But, you know, we realize there needs to be some removal of the wood, but we would highly recommend that the city actually fund the a planning process, not just a bicycle trail. That's all the planning department seems to have been concerned about, but a holistic process. And if I can point out that the athletic field over the um, the tunnel, over the buried conduit, which is partially in the Asylum Hill neighborhood, if there had been a comprehensive strategy to work together by the city, we could have maybe some kind of trail on the west side of that athletic field over, because there's a little wetland and there's drainage of the spots that go down into the conduit at that between Clemens Place parking lots and the athletic field and the parking lots at Mark Twain House and the Good Shepherd property in the firehouse. Like all of that is sort of overdeveloped but underutilized natural space in the city, and we just don't have a comprehensive plan. And I, you know, that's and I think Luisa's, we're grateful. We absolutely, we're so grateful that there's a lot of people who are stepping up because during the pandemic, they walked the trail, they discovered, and there's more and more people who are realizing it's an amazing asset. It shouldn't be a parking lot owned by DAS and underutilized. The DAS is the Department of Administrative Services. They manage that property for the Board of Ed and 39 Woodland. And one problem is that the property managers, the facility managers that are hired by DAS are owned services out of Orlando, Florida. They've shifted all the way down. They used to be, I think, local, but now they're owned in Orlando, and their position has not been supportive of the health of the river. They want to use the floodplain to plow they've been, putting in lighting and parking, and now they're using it for training facilities. But that parking lot at 61 Woodland, which floods frequently and will only increasingly flood, is we've been asking for years to have that restored. There's actually funding through the Army Corps, MUFI funding, and that would be a perfect place to take out wood to create a diversion for the wood that comes downstream. Maybe there's something needed up above Albany Avenue, up maybe the utilization of the Village for Family and Children floodplain for the removal of wood upstream before it goes under the bridge at Albany Avenue. But anyway, thank you for listening to me. That was a mouthful.
All right, we'll continue to look into this. Is there any other business to come before the, you guys want to speak up? Alan, anybody?
I actually
Are you
do.
all set?
I just have one thing.
One thing,
Guys,
Um,
wait, can you
Yeah,
hear me?
last year, we lost Commissioner Harry Hardy. I just wanted to acknowledge, that he served the commission, for many years. Do you know, Mike, how many years exactly? Was he there longer than you?
same.
So would you say
10 years.
10? So Chairman McGarry says probably about 10 years. And so, we never got a chance to, to say goodbye or talk about him because we haven't met. So I just wanted to acknowledge that he's no longer with us and that we have a vacancy in Hartford. And, we have two vacancies in Hartford because, Mr. Hughes isn't with us, or is not in Hartford anymore. And then, of course, we have the West Hartford vacancy. I'm glad that Commissioner Wengel is hanging in there and certainly Commissioner Linda Keating Corbin and the chairman. But we are, and Commissioner Burson. So we are down 3 commissioners. Just wanted you to know that.
We gotta find something.
So that's it for me.
Okay, call for adjournment. All in favor? Will you just wave your hand, Alan? All set. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Maybe next meeting in person, let's hope.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll bring coffee.
If there's,
Old-
vaccinated.
The old chairman used to give coffee. Now I think it's my duty, once we
That
get
would be
together,
great. What a
to bring coffee. Coffee and donuts from the new place right down that highway, Prime.
Yeah, I saw your setup.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank
All right, I gotta go to Board of Assessment Appeals.
Well, there's no more time to talk. All right, we'll talk later on the phone.
I'm
No,
supposed to be
I-
there.
These days.
Yeah, that's got everything. All right, all set, I gotta.
Thank you.
I'm
Say
late.
hello to your wife.
Will do. Thank
Everything,
you.
All right?